Okay, here we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you for tuning in today. Welcome to the show. We're joined by Coach Nick, BBallbreakdown, EJ. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Doing well. Sorry, I'm glad I could be here, get some technical difficulties set up and fixed, and we can talk some Knicks.
Yeah, it's
Yep,
so great to have you again here, Coach. Thank you so much for making the time. We really, really appreciate it. And CT, how are you doing, my friend?
doing really well. Ready to have this conversation with the one, the only Coach Nick, the chat, yourself, Nick's Nation out here. It's been a crazy season, gentlemen, across the NBA, which we'll touch on a bit later in the show. But, Coach, the New York Knicks are currently sitting 20 and 18. What has been your initial impressions so far of what you've seen?
It's funny. It's been up and down, and I was about to do a video on the Knicks and when they were in that big winning streak not long ago, and then they went on a losing streak, and I kind of felt like, okay, that was good. I didn't do that video because it wouldn't have, been very, timely. And I think that that's probably the point of the way the team is structured and the way the roster is built and the way they're being coached. It kind of makes sense to me that you're going to sort of see wild swings back and forth. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some that maybe they could control and get a little bit more, stable, but also there are some things that happen, I think, with the scheduling, just by the nature of the schedule in the NBA, that really can help teams depending on what level you're at, where you are. When you get to play Houston, that'll solve a lot of problems if you've been
Yeah,
struggling.
no, you said it.
So, Coach Nick, thank you again for being on with us. With the Knicks being tied for sixth in the East at this point, should we consider this a success so far, a failure, or it is what it is, and why?
Well, I mean, the question here is the success is going to be based on, are they learning what's working? Are they adjusting to that? Are they pushing more of the good stuff and not, sort of being stuck in some sort of mold that they don't want to adjust on, which is what Tibbs tends to do. So that really is going to be the key here is, do they realize that, like, playing Quentin Grimes a lot and playing like quickly alongside Brunson, that's good. We should continue to do that and maybe do that more. And if the lineups are being analyzed well enough, then yes, that would be the success. That they're actually getting somewhere with some of the younger talent, which we've been waiting for. I don't know how long have I been on the show with you guys? At least for a couple seasons now, where I've been waiting for, and I've been talking about quickly, who's not his shot selection isn't great. His field goal percentage is pretty inefficient. But I really, what struck me going through a bunch of half-court possessions just now was when you see him and Brunson together, there's something about that I like based on how they're running their offense, that it's nice to have a second guy that can put the ball on the ground and really create stuff for him and his teammates, and like quickly can, because we know what Brunson can do. So
Mm.
obviously this all kind of revolves around like a very special alchemy that Tibbs is going to have to figure out. I don't know if he can, but there are these little blips here. You're like, okay, that's really good. That's good stuff. Let's keep going with there. So I'm encouraged, but again, I guess the question is there a ceiling on this team? Have they hit it? And right now, as of today, we're recording this, so they're tied with the Heat. And the Heat's another one of these weird teams I can't get a handle on either, for probably the similar reasons. They're only a game behind the Indiana. Indiana is just now sort of feeling themselves and playing well for the first time in a while. So they might not, sustain that either. So I would think that this is a good spot for them here in that 6 to 8 range, where it could go either way from there. I don't see them getting higher than that. But again, would that be a success? Probably. But then again, let's just pretend, if we look at the All-Stars, I know you're going to bring that up in a little bit. If you got two guys that are all-star players, you should be higher than that, and they're not.
Yeah, you hit, and in terms of the success of the Knicks have had, it's encouraging, Coach and EJ, based on the Knicks are playing a lot of their young players, all of them that were drafted um, in the rotation. Miles McBride, he shortened the rotation. That was the catalyst, Coach, for an 8-game winning streak when he took Fournier and Cam Reddish out of the rotation. We talked about Cam Reddish, and he was one of the X factors that you had heading into this season. But Miles McBride obviously picked that up defensively, but the Knicks obviously have struggled a little bit offensively with the bench unit. And you hit the money with Quickly playing next to Brunson, a two-way guy that can also handle the ball. I was really encouraged by what I saw last night against Phoenix with that matchup.
For sure, for sure. And it's funny because I'm looking at like what are they running, what sets they're running, and it used to be a lot more organized isn't the right word, but structured when you'd watch a Thibs team. And like last night, for instance, it was a lot of just sort of 5 out or 4 out and 1 in, and just sort of like relying on the talent that they have on the court to get some good spacing, try and force a closeout. They weren't even forcing long closeouts. They're getting maybe a couple step closeouts. But, guys like Quickly, guys like Brunson can really hammer those if you get even enough of an advantage there. And then, Grimes is this guy who I wasn't familiar with his game very much at all, but he seems like on both sides of the floor, a really good presence for them. And when you look at the lineups, like I called up the lineups, and a lot of times when I do this and I'm looking at on the net rating, the advanced stats to see what the net rating, offensive rating is, or all these 5-man lineups. Sometimes I'll just sort of be watching a certain player and be like, I'm going to check one thing. And I call them all up and I just do find and I type in the guy's last name. And then I sort of can see very quickly, like, what's his effect here? And when you look at Grimes and when he pops up in all these 5-man lineups, they're almost all really positive net rating, and probably more than almost anybody else in the team. So there's something about the way he's been playing on both sides and shooting really well that's giving them a really good basis there that sort of fits together well, which I don't think they had before that. That Fournier wasn't fitting well with that kind of in that kind of a role, trying to spot and shoot. And this guy is doing a lot better. And so that's the thing. It's encouraging, and they're letting him play.
Yeah, which brings me to my question. You mentioned, Coach, how you were going to do a piece on the team with regards to the 8-game winning streak. Obviously, that was followed by a 5-game losing streak. The Knicks giveth, the Knicks taketh away. But what were you going to suggest were some of like the key reasons why they went on that 8-game winning streak? What were some of the key factors? Was there a key player that you just thought really changed the dynamic, or was it shortening the rotation? What do you think were the contributing factors to that 8-game winning streak?
I don't want to be too much of a downer, but a lot of times when I see a streak like that, because I've been on the corner of my eye watching it, I'm trying to watch as many games as I can, and Knicks aren't always front and center what I'm seeing. But as it started to develop and they got into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins in a row, the first thing I do is I said, okay, let's look at the schedule. Let's see who they're beating. And let's look at that real quickly, because it was the Cavs, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Kings, the Bulls, the Pacers, the Warriors. So in there are, some teams that, are struggling. The Hornets are struggling. The Hawks are, in a mess right now where the coach might not make it till next week. Cleveland's a good win, so that's interesting. The Kings, another one of these. This has been a weird season, guys. I don't know what else to tell you, because just want to get on the Kings bandwagon, right, and think, okay, they're really doing some fun stuff. They're really doing well offensively. People want to call this like the juiced era, like a baseball reference. And I don't even know if that's necessarily the case, but there's something going on, and people are really offensively making these jumps now. And it could very well be the culmination of an era where everybody's now playing in space. Everyone's training to be able to attack off the dribble and off the catch quickly. And so suddenly the defenses are not nearly as effective, and they haven't been year over year anyway. And maybe now there's going to be another watershed here, and it's not necessarily even related to like 3-point frequency. That hasn't shot up as far as I know, but I do feel like there's an increase in the percentage there. So the point being that this could very well be an inflated time, maybe, or the beginning of a whole new era where you just can't stop anybody anymore, and that's going to be require a new look at the way you play defense as a whole. I had actually invented a new defense, which we could get into at some point, because it's really radical in response to what is radically becoming a game that is where you can't stop guys. By the way, one of those rules would probably be the take foul that they got rid of is now allowing teams to get up the court in a fast break situation more. That does a lot to the scoring as well. So at any rate, to get back to your point, I'm sorry I'm long-winded today for some reason, but
no, you're good. You're good.
Part of it was schedule. Part of it was, they had a nice home stretch in there. Oh, actually, they didn't. 4 of those are on the road. And but I think what they're starting to figure out is that this Brunson guy, he's really good.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
look forward to future breakdown videos. Everyone, link in the description, like how could I forget to mention that? Obviously, Coach Nick, BBallbreakdown, one of the best out there in creating content and opening the mind up about the game. And yeah, you guys hit it. I think 3-point defense is something I really wanted to talk to you guys about, because Tom Thibodeau, that's where he's been much maligned in terms of the Knicks. Start of the season, teams were shooting incredibly hot on the Knicks coach, and I think that was a bit of the reason for the fluctuation. When Miles McBride came in, we were giving guys less time to get better looks. Part of the reason why the Knicks also can struggle is, and I don't like this part of the game, is the closeout fouls. It's almost impossible to contest properly without not being in the person's space. And we've seen the Luke Cornett, um, the KP who's trying it now, contest from far out. What's been your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau's defensive philosophy of the three ball, and with the
I
hard
mean,
closeout?
it's interesting because he was sort of the pioneer of no middle defense, trying to prevent guys from penetrating the middle. And when you get in the middle, that's when you force guys to have to help, and then that's when you get the kickouts for open threes. And I would say 99% of the time when I'm trying to break down why a team is not good at defending the three, or why the opponent three-point percentage is high relative to the league, it's almost always that. That's a big one, and then helping one pass away is the other big one. And I mean, right now, as a quick look, I'm looking at the opponent shooting on this stats on the NBA's page. And right now, the Knicks are fourth best in opponent three-point shooting. And then the other big one then is the frequency. Are they limiting the frequency? Now, the opponent is taking the fourth most threes in terms of frequency. So that you'll see a lot of the times we're going to getting drives and kicks, and you're getting a little bit of overzealous on the help. And that could come from a mindset where a lot of times, Thibodeau, is that bellowing out and trying to get them to like maybe overcompensate defensively, which sometimes leads to guys getting out of position, guys trying almost too hard to close out, and they get too close and they get in the landing space. So the defensive stuff is interesting because a lot of times coaches want to say, oh, we want smoke coming out of their ears and they're going to play like as hard as they can. Offense, you want to, be at 80% so you can, execute, under control. But I got to tell you that defense is just offense without the ball. And there's a lot of that sort of skill and balance that you need just as much on the offensive end as you need on the defensive end as well. So you start getting out of position like you're trying too hard because you got a coach that's riding you on that and threatening like to take away playing time if you don't. And all of a sudden your defense starts to lose its shape. That said, they are a top 10 defense as well. They're probably the lowest ranked team.
Sorry, one of four teams that are top 10 offense and defense right now.
And they have to be the lowest of all the four teams in terms of the standings, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense to me that you'd be sixth in the conference like that with the top 10 on both. So
that's a fair point, but that's what's deceiving is if the Knicks had not capitulated against Toronto, Chicago, and Dallas, we would be outright fifth seed. So yeah, I think the Knicks lost those three games at the very end due to missed free throws.
Yeah. Right. I now remember some of the that is true, and you would hope that gets fixed a little bit, as the season goes on, and maybe they practice their free throws a little bit more. I don't know. Although if you were to tell me it was also what tends to get fixed, maybe as the season wears on, are the stupid mental mistakes that you'd see teams do, throwing the ball away, can't get the ball in bounds, when they're up by 4 with whatever, and then they throw it away, or even closer. We saw the Warriors do this, right, where they threw the ball. All they had to do is throw the ball in and get fouled. The game's over, and they just the ball gets stolen in half court. The other team gets a layup, and the game's over. So those are the kind of things that are really obvious to be able to fix. Free throws are tough because you never know if the guys are going to be able to handle that pressure or not. And by the way, that kind of even goes towards the Randle thing, right? Which was, guy, he had his best year in the bubble when there wasn't fans, there wasn't any pressure for him to from the fans yelling and screaming in the background and all that stuff. I'm glad to see that he seems to have figured out some things and gotten back to his, much more of a efficient self. Still not in love with the way he plays, but if you watch that game against the Suns, by the way, he was passing the ball. Like, he was giving it up and looking to give the ball up. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys obviously watch all the games. Does he get into those funks where it's like sometimes he won't pass the ball at all, black hole, and then other games he's just like looking to pass almost too much?
No, so I think he's been way better this year. To be honest, Julius Randle's made quicker decisions. His assist rates are up. 6 assists last night. I think Jalen Brunson, coach, has just had a huge impact.
Yeah.
He's definitely had the ball less. And EJ.
Yeah. I definitely, you can see it just in terms of like time of possession during the course of the season. So if you were to compare the start of this season versus the start of last season, Julius had the ball way more and was forced to orchestrate a lot more than he's doing right now. And so I think that just by having that pressure relieved, it just allows for him to have more clarity of thought, more focus, not to rely on the same bag of tricks that he would have relied on last season, because you have Jalen Brunson, who's a really heady guard who will make the defense start to think and second guess itself. So we're seeing a different Julius because we have a different point guard this season.
You know what's funny about that is I'm seeing all these passes. I'm like, wait, this seems like it's different than last year. And I went up and looked at the passes made per game. Last year, he was at like 51 per game, and this year he's at 45. So he's actually making less passes per game. But I don't know. I mean, I was bouncing around some clips and seeing a lot more of the willingness to pass and not force it in a way that that was also very encouraging. And there's no question, the guy like Brunson is going to inspire, I think, guys to make the right play and want to make the right play. And I think what's interesting about him, he's such a tough guard, and he is in that old school sense of like how you run a team. That he's like, okay, this guy hasn't gotten a shot for 10 possessions. We got to get him the shot, right? He's the kind of guy the Chris Paul kind of guy that would do that. Yeah. Or he'll say, you know what, we haven't scored in 6 possessions. I'm going to make sure that we score, and it's probably going to be me in the post, as a little doing that. So that's the kind of thing that, when you get that kind of order and the coach on the floor, which they really didn't have, right, before this, it makes Thibs look a lot better. And let's not forget, Thibs has had these teams where the point guards do really, really well, right? Like inexplicably sometimes. DJ Augustine, right, had a career, stretch there under him. And then maybe Nate Robinson's another guy in that specific position could really do well and flourish. That said, this is a totally different offense, right? What they're running now is just like the, pace and space. And what we'll have to get into a little bit is I think there's an insistence here. I got to look at some more of the lineups to play like 2 bigs a lot. And it's weird to try and do pace and space like 4 out, 1 in when you have like Fournier, when you have like Robinson. Well, who am I seeing? I'm seeing Hartenstein and Randle,
Sims.
Or I'll see, who else are the big ones? Sims and not Robinson.
And Mitchell Robinson.
Are they playing together?
It's Hartenstein and Sims.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That's what it is. That's weird, right? But let's not forget, a lot of times the best 3-point shots are the ones you get off of offensive rebounds. And if you want to increase offensive rebounds, you should play those 2 guys together. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you guys looked at that and seen, is there an increase in offensive rebounding?
Oh no, Coach.
Yeah. Coach will jump back in. But yeah, I think you were saying, has there been an increase in offensive rebounding this season, EJ? I mean, Mitchell Robinson's offensive rebounding game's gone to another level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you just look at the rebounding game altogether, offensive and defensive, a lot of us questioned, placing Hartenstein and Sims together. But, we see an overall improvement in terms of the offensive rebounding as well as the defensive rebounding. Welcome back, Coach.
The perils of doing this on your phone is your daughter will call you on a FaceTime call, which I guess apparently interrupts this thing. I don't know why. I'm trying to send her a message
while you do that.
So I didn't quite hear that, but did you say that, yes, there is indications that the offensive rebounding has improved with those guys?
Yeah. Mitchell Robinson. Yeah. Mitchell Robinson's been fantastic at offensive rebounding, the best in the league this season.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm seeing him trying to handle the ball more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that a good thing?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he's got a little handle. Did a little under the leg, behind the leg, no look pass. He's trying
Yeah.
to, without putting up shots. Coach is fleshing out the rest of his game a little bit because he doesn't have. Well, Randle actually dumped down a few passes to Mitch
Yes.
under the
Yeah.
basket,
Yeah. A couple
which
of
was
post
great.
moves. Yeah. Which that's a
Yeah,
good.
I
That's
don't know if that's what they want to do, but hey, throw him a bone, right?
yeah.
For
Exactly.
all they
Encourage the big fella.
Well,
um,
just got
yeah,
a question.
I saw that last night. He was dribbling across the court on the free throw line and then sort of threw the ball underneath the leg. Like I was actually gonna like share that with some friends and with an LOL emoji because I don't know what that was. That looked like a young kid not knowing how to dribble through his legs, but it was cute. It was nice. It was like he's exploring, right? That's the whole
Yeah.
point. That's good.
Got a coach got another call, and we'll wait till he jumps back in.
Yeah. Yes.
Talking to his daughter. But yeah, salute to the chat, everyone up in here. We got B-ball breakdown, Coach Nick in the house, EJ, the
Hey.
best
Hey.
chat in the biz.
That's right. That's
The
right. Nick's
streets are
buzz.
buzzing. Smash that like button. Keep throwing questions up in here as well. Salute, Happy New Year to everyone that we haven't said Happy New Year to yet.
Definitely.
Um,
Definitely. But yeah, we can. I mean, while we're waiting for Coach Nick, I mean that Mitch question about him being in the post. Um, we're definitely gonna get Coach Nick back in a second. But it's also good to get your big man involved every now and again. It provides less predictability in terms of the offense, and he has really been beasting on the board. So just getting him some touches on the offensive end that makes my heart smile. So
yeah,
I do get a little concerned with like a little bit of the fancy razzle dazzle stuff, but especially because Mitch is one of those players who we've seen him active on social media. So if you get him 2 or 3 possessions where he can try to do something, just to temper his less desirable aspects or behavior on social media, I'm willing to take that on.
yeah, absolutely. And Coach, you with us? Yep. Coach is back. Coach maybe can't hear us right now. Coach.
Passing the rock to you, Coach.
Yep. He's figuring things out. And yeah, appreciate the super chat buzzer beater. Happy New Year, guys. Does Randall suck on D because he uses so much energy and muscle scoring? Well,
Ooh,
we'll get
that's a good
Coach's
question.
thoughts, but EJ.
Yeah, put me on the spot. And with perfect timing. This is why he's called Coach. Perfect timing.
Well, I was trying to be too smart by putting in airplane mode so no one can call me, and that cut me off my Wi-Fi. So here I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, totally
Yep.
great.
All right.
Totally great, Coach.
Nothing will get in their way now.
We're just answering this question. A super chat from Buzzer Beater says, "Happy New Year, guys. Does Randall's D suck on because he's using so much energy and muscle scoring?" Now, I think with Brunson here, Coach, obviously he hasn't had to carry the burden of scoring like he did last year. I think his defense is better, but obviously I think Randle is, didn't come into the league as a, defensive kind of player.
Mm.
He's just trying to, fill in and find the right spots on the floor.
You know what's funny is we've seen elite defenses with a player at Randall's position not be very good defensively. So, and it's been a little while since I've looked at this because I remember, like, for instance, David Lee on the Warriors way back in the day, they had a top 5 defensive team, and he was, he couldn't stop anybody. And that, Carlos Boozer was another guy when they played for the Thibs and the Bulls. I know this has happened even more recently, although it almost feels like there's less and less of those kind of guys that get the totally bad rap about defense because I think because the offenses are just so good, everyone's going to get embarrassed. Everyone's going to get scored now. That it's like, but every once in a while you'll see the one guy who's just lost, doesn't always pay attention, but it's not as prevalent now. But I do feel like there's something about that where you can hide certain guys in certain positions and still actually be pretty good. If you can just get a little bit of effort there, get some boards, defensive rebounds, that'll help. So yeah, and that's obviously the one thing that Thibs is supposed to be able to hang his hat on, and it's been somewhat consistent, although some of those teams have not been. Is the defense and is playing good positional defense and making it little bit tougher on the offense to score.
Is it because of switching? Is it also because Randle is a four, but not necessarily the modern NBA four? So is it also those two factors as well?
Right. Yeah, because a lot of times you think, well, they're not going to target him as a default in a typical offense because it's the five that come out and set the ball screen, and then you switch, and now Mitchell Robinson's in trouble out there, although he's not bad at that either. And so sometimes you got to think, okay, that's why, like in a playoff series, is when all the things change, and they're going to hunt him mercilessly, where you might not see that in the regular season. For a lot of reasons. Either they're just not as organized in the regular season. They don't want to show their hand as much, then they want to save stuff in case they play them in the playoffs. So all those things factor in. But I would be worried about that. I mean, I'm worried about this team as a playoff team. I don't know if I'm sold yet on the fact that they are legit top, 10 offense and defense. That would indicate a very deep run in the playoffs, right? I don't feel that from them yet. But there is some cause for celebration, and certainly what are they 2 games above 500 right now? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 20 and 18.
Yeah, 2 games
2
above.
games over.
It's a great place to be in. It's better than being under 500, at this point in the season into January. So
RJ Barrett's been out.
I think what's that?
RJ Barrett's currently out and been out for a few games now with the lacerated finger. I mean, how wild has this season been? But yeah, he's probably going to be back any day now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm troubled by him a little bit too. I know he's doing fine, but I watched a few games earlier this year, and I know he was like my spidey sense was tingling a lot around Barrett and his play. And listen, it's only 22. It's crazy. He seems like he should be 26 at this point.
Yeah, right. The fan base keeps saying.
Because for me is like, well, this is probably, has he hit his ceiling? Is he not through anymore? Is he a 20-point a game scorer? Or is he kind of on low efficiency where, he can play some defense, he can give you some 3-point shooting at times. It's rough because you'd want to see a guy that young get to that point, and then, there should be more. But something about him it's concerning to me. I hope I can see more because I did a video on him 3 years ago, I think, saying that he could get there based on the fact that he could do almost 20 points a game as a, what was he, a 20-year-old. So I'm worried about that. I'm worried that there's a stagnancy there, which isn't bad. Listen, 20-point a game is 20-point a game, but the pace has increased in this new era of basketball, and so getting to 20 isn't as impressive as it used to be. And if you're finishing at the rim like he does, which is not always great, then that's a problem.
Is the outside shooting that concerns? So sorry, CT. Is the outside shooting that concerns you, or is it the consistency? What is it particularly that concerns you?
The thing actually for Barrett specifically, it's the finishing at the rim. I think that's what frustrates me the most because again, 3-point has a lot of variability, and then you can get hot, you can get not, whatever, and I get it. And he's been good enough where if he's 34, 35%, enough where they're gonna have to be. It's funny because we talk about shooters and spacing and what that does to the defense. And the difference between like a bad shooter and a good shooter on the weak side is probably a step and a half, maybe 2 steps tops, right? Like really, unless you're so bad, then they're really they're going to get, way off of you. But with him, I don't think that they're going to completely ignore him. They're going to have to be somewhere in the area and be aware of him, which is all they need on the offensive end. It's when he gets going downhill and he shoots some of his shots and the floaters and the runners. I would like to see more of those go down.
He's been better at that recently, gentlemen. One thing that I've noticed in RJ's game, probably in the last 5-10 games, is he's been more patient getting to the cup. Back to the basket, coach. He's been posting up a bit more, and he's got that, turn the corner, a little floater, hook shot as well, rather than just barrel into the defender like he was doing for the last few seasons. So it seems like the game is slowing down a little bit for RJ. That the shooting's getting better coming in. I just think that the playmaking is a part of RJ's game that can really take his game to another level.
Yeah, you know what? I quickly called up the last 10 games to just check that what that would look like, and yes, his overall field goal percentage is up to almost 49%, which is great to see, and he's stroking it from 3 as well, which is great. And again, this is sort of a pattern we do see where it does go up and down for him. And if he could get, even if he cools down, but then gets consistent, that would be a really big plus for him. And there's no question, like when he's out, the rotations are not nearly as good. The team isn't as good as they are when he's in, and there's no question about that.
He draws fouls. He draws fouls.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I've been saying for a long time, the league has gone away from post-ups, but part of the thing is it's the wrong guys are posting up. It's the James Harden should be posting up. The position, the skill set, because if you get a guy 14 feet from the basket, then he can face up or whatever, like that's lethal. And I don't know why we haven't seen even more of that. I think it's moving more towards that a little bit, but we should see Steph Curry should be posting up more. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, Tom Thibodeau is a polarizing figure, coach in EJ. Some questions come in about zone, and why doesn't Thibs run any horns? But yeah, zone. The Knicks get played zone again still. Philadelphia did it on Christmas Day, and it worked to a treat. But yeah, Coach Thibodeau hasn't used zone at all himself.
There are coaches out there, and we could probably get to another, concept about following up by 3, that they simply don't play zone. I was kind of like that. I remember when I was coaching the high school level, we won a few games. So here's what happened. It's funny. I was a triangle offense coach. So we worked really hard on that, and you kind of have man-to-man in practice to play against that, so you get really good at it. And then all of a sudden, the other team plays zone. You don't play zone, and you're not used to playing zone because you don't have it in your practice, right? Because you don't play it. So we actually had to put a zone in so that we can get used to playing against it. And then in practice, I'm like, this isn't so bad. We could run this, and this would probably work. And then we win some games on the zone, and I almost would be embarrassed. I'm like, how can we play a 2-3 zone for most of the second half and shut the team down? But you know what? When you play it right, it is hard to score against. So there's no question at this day and age, you need to be willing to do everything and anything. I mean, I'll look at even Jeremy Sochan for the Spurs. Just switched to his free throw shooting to a one-handed, which it looks the fundamentals all of a sudden. And imagine if a coach had been like, no, we're going to show you a Klay Thompson shot, and that's how we're going to force you to do that until whatever. You got to and keep trying things. And I know there are a lot of coaches out there that have a lot of interesting different zones they play, which completely mucks the game up and makes it really hard. And so I feel like, there's no question, especially if you got size like Hartenstein and Randle, you could probably play a zone and really have them be effective in grabbing rebounds. But the reason why I had to think about it for a second is you got to have the other 3 around him have to be kind of long and quick, right, to cover a lot of ground. Who is that? Who would you have alongside? If you did Hartenstein and because Hartenstein can move, Hartenstein and Randle, and then who would you have? You'd have Barrett, you'd have Grimes, right?
Yeah.
And somebody else who's long. I'm trying to think of who else they have that's like that. McBride, is he? What is he? 6'4"?
McBride's 6'2".
6'2".
Yeah. You've got Fournier still there.
Yeah, but you don't want Fournier is not going to come around.
Not defensively, no. I mean, you got Svi Mikhailuk still on the bench at the moment, but everyone else we're lacking. That's really what we're lacking.
Yeah,
coach, in terms of the trade period.
Them in Reddish, right?
Yeah, Reddish, but he's on the outer, coach. He's on the trade block right now.
Yeah. Oh, now remind me. Obi has been hurt, right?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen him play at all. And it's just a pleasure to see him start to figure some things out as well. And again, they don't want to give him more minutes. You guys tell me, am I crazy? That should he get at least 20 minutes a game?
That's the debate. I mean, I think that most of Knicks Nation would probably say yes, but that has been the perpetual debate for the past 2-3 years. Is how much time should Obi be getting, and should it come at the expense of Julius Randle's time? And that's been the talking point for the past few years.
Yeah, and of course Randle is doing really well at 24 points a game and
Yeah.
shooting 7 from the field and
Yep.
35 free. So of course politically you can't cut those 35 minutes down all of a sudden, right? Even though it would have been really easy if he was shooting 41% and 31% from three. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Facts.
35 is probably okay. Maybe you could get another minute or two out of him. But you're right. Like, where does he find it? Because I like Jericho Sims. I like Mitchell Robinson. I like some of those guys in the front court, and they should get some minutes too. So it is tough, but there's no question. There's a dynamic aspect to Obi out there that he deserves to get a rhythm going.
He was getting about 20 minutes early this season. The 3-point shooting started really well, but it regressed a bit, coach. But Obi is certainly that energy guy, length, spark off the bench. We do struggle with rebounding, obviously a little bit with Obi, with the Hartenstein Sims combination. The Knicks have been owning the glass on a lot of situations.
So, and by the way, I'm glad this. Okay, there's an example of being out of the box as well, because they call it crazy to play those two guys together. But so I to do is, and I had lost my connection for a minute when we were talking about this. I want to pull it out. I want to see if the 3-point frequency really goes up. Actually, I could do that while we're talking. When it's Sims and Hartenstein together, that's the lineups they're playing.
Yeah, it's part of the second unit.
Because again, in theory, yes, those guys would be pounding the offensive glass, and then you kicking them out, and you should be getting those threes. And it's funny because now that we all understand those are the best threes, you ain't seen a guy pass up a shot once he comes out from an offensive rebound, even if they're not really even open, right? Like, we see a lot of those shots and you know what? That's great. Like, let's take some of the decision making out of it here. If you get that kick out from offensive rebound, just let it fly. I used to do that with my baseline out of bounds plays. I'm like, if you catch the ball here, I don't care if there's a defender all over you. You are shooting it or you are coming out of the game. So there's something nice about that, and I would love to kind of even see if we can parse that out in a two-man lineup, which we can do. We have the technology. As you guys are talking, I'm going to be looking that up real quick to see.
Yeah, and just on that note, EJ's got a bounce for the night. But EJ, appreciate you. Thanks for your contribution and any final thoughts.
As always. Coach Nick, it's always a pleasure having you on. Hopefully we have a chance to have you on several more times this season, especially when we figure out this, because the next big thing is going to be figuring out what happens when Obi comes back, when RJ comes back, what is going to happen with the rotation. But it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Coach Nick. CT, my guy, you're my guy. You will hear from me very soon. And to the entire Knicks Buzz family, make sure to like, smash that subscribe, smash it, smash the algorithm, and thank you for always supporting Knicks Buzz. Thanks, guys. I will see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'm quickly looking for Hartenstein and Hartenstein and what did we say?
And Jericho Sims.
Here it is. So their offensive rebounding percentage, is 38.4%. It's pretty high as a two-man lineup. Now, to figure that out, we got to see what like if they're getting more threes, but that certainly indicates something there. And I'm glad to see that, because there's no question in my mind you can have a lot of success with a two big lineup still because of that, and without having to lose anything. Now, the beauty of that is if you got a guy, if one of those two guys who was big and burly gets those rebounds, could also shoot threes. Those two guys are not it, right? But there is going to be a future at some point where a Hartenstein is going to shoot threes, right? And will be really good at it. And then you can play those two guys together. And so at some point, one guy gets it, the other guy could be spacing and be another threat from behind the line. And so suddenly you're not really, just a big lineup that can't shoot.
Yeah, with Hartenstein's 3-point shooting, that's what fans, coach, were high on. But to be honest, we haven't seen the volume, and we haven't seen the success rate. It was a very low sample size with LA. It was like he was hitting 1.1 attempts, I think. But certainly he's the best stretch 5 that the Knicks currently have. He's okay at the corner ball, but I just don't know if Thibs really wants Hartenstein, taking many threes. He was very comfortable with Obi. So Obi was putting up about 3 attempts per game from 3 before he went out. So Obi definitely had that green light, stretching the floor, and started shooting the three ball really well.
What's interesting, this could be a video at some point, is when you're talking about the kind of offenses that we're seeing a lot, and like what I was watching last night against the Suns, which is like, when they're a spread offense, there's not a lot of sort of organized action, right? Out of a timeout, there will be. I saw Spain pick and roll, and I saw a little bit of some pistol handoff action to the wing, but a lot of it quick, like the four eyes out, and then Robinson, kind of roaming the perimeter. And so a lot of times that the three ball gets dictated by like what position are you starting in. And if
Yeah,
Hartenstein, like the only way he's going to get a three pretty much in that situation would be some sort of a ball screen and then pop. But I have a feeling that if he were to pop to three, Thibs would be all over him, and he'd need him. He's like, you got to go to the roll of the basket, roll. But I don't, because again, rolling the basket brings the defense down out of the way and opens up other things. But if Al Horford only did that, then the offense on the Celtics would not work nearly as well. And then fill that in for every other center that gets to shoot, Embiid and those guys too. So, I'm certainly not surprised that Hartenstein came in there and wasn't going to be getting more than half a three a game, whatever it is. The way this looks like, he would have to have like probably calls made. Sets called where the opportunity would arise out of a more rote setting. I just don't see that happening. So that's going to be a problem. But it is good to see that Obi did get unleashed a little bit here, and was successful with that. Actually, I'm looking here on his 3-point attempts per game is 3.9. Only 17 minutes. That's a lot of threes to be getting up in 17 minutes.
What's interesting is you mentioned the kickouts. When Quentin Grimes has started to get healthy, coach, around, I think it was after 15, 20 games, the ball movement got better. And the Grimes is great with dribble penetration, either gets the dump down or the kick back out, which usually results in a quickly corner three or an RJ three at the elbow.
Absolutely. That's when it's going at their best. Like, right, again, is you're getting guys into the lane a little bit off some sort of dribble penetration, and then with Brunson doing that too, and then they're making good reads, attacking off the catch well, and that's it's good to see. It's kind of exciting to watch when they're playing their offense like that versus what we had seen in the past with a lot of extra dribbling in place and a lot of long twos. I think we're still seeing Randle still shooting those long twos. All the way. Actually, he's taking almost 8 threes a game. I was watching against the Suns at least, and he was still hitting some, and he hits them though. So it's almost like that DeMar DeRozan thing, right? Where, the dude, actually DeRozan gets closer. Interestingly enough, I feel like Randle still only gets to about 21 feet on those, where DeRozan's shooting 18. But he can make that, and it's a legitimate shot for him. So you shouldn't be like, I'm not going to completely roll my eyes and say he shouldn't be shooting those.
Yeah. Also, in terms of the win streak, coach, Thibs went down to an 8-9 man rotation. It didn't prove to be too sustainable. RJ went down. Obi's been down. I guess when everyone gets back healthy, what's your feeling towards that with Thibs and your personal philosophy in terms of, it's a long 82 game season. Most of the Knicks fan base want to see a 10-man rotation, especially when Obi's back.
Oh, he needs to do that. And I think he's learned in the past how he's worn out players, and they've broken down by the end of the season because he's played them 9 minutes every game. And by the way, you could probably do 38 minutes a game, but you got to have him not play the third of the fourth night on the back-to-back in the row, whatever those are, right? That's the key. But he wouldn't. Like Jimmy Butler would just play every single game, and he'd get worn down. And that's the thing that I believe he's kind of figured out and been more willing to. But it's easy. If you're on the hot seat a little bit and you're worried about every little win and you have to micromanage and you feel like you have to micromanage, you're going to cut down the rotation and only play a playoff rotation in January. That's not a great idea. If you have to grind out wins by playing 8 or 9 guys in January, then it's probably not worth it. Your team isn't going to end up doing that later on either. So he's in a good situation. He's got players that can play. And there's not enough minutes for all of them. So this is good. You can now start to play with that a little bit and get more guys, get an 11 rotation going and see what you have. I'm encouraged by that. I know that I'm still high on Quickly and Robinson and the funny thing in Toppin as well. So that was our conversation like all last year.
And Grimes.
who is new to me. How come I don't remember Grimes? Did he play last year?
Yeah, he's a second-year player, but he
Oh,
was buried pretty much, coach. Grimes was pretty much buried last year. It was Obi and Quickly getting majority of the minutes. McBride certainly hardly saw the floor last season, so
yeah.
it's great to see from Nick fan base. Like you said, there's flexibility now. These drafted players are growing. They are showing great development. And Quentin Grimes is the starting two guard now, and he does everything you need in terms of defend, shoot, dribble, drive. But his lack of size. At 6'5", coach, hinders his finishing.
Oh, really? Okay. Because
Yeah,
when I've been recently, it didn't feel like that was much of an issue. And the funny thing then is, RJ Barrett is going to come back and he's going to expect to start and he will start, and that puts Grimes on the bench. Maybe that's okay with him because, if he can do what he's doing against starters, then he should be able to do more or do better against the reserves. So that might actually work out well for them. Or there'll be pressure on Thibs to keep that starting lineup as it is now, and maybe Barrett will be better going against the second units. That
yeah,
actually might be they could look at, because maybe Barrett needs a little bit of that. He could use a little bit of confidence building, a little bit more of going against the second unit guys. That might get him going and out of and increase
absolutely.
his percentage.
Yeah, some inside out action. I always thought, coach, Barrett could play the small ball four, in my opinion. You know how we said Tibbs get mad scientist, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, RJ Barrett's so strong that he can play spot minutes at the four, and I think he's been showing a nice touch with some post ups.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's no question that RJ Barrett is a four. In 10 years, like a
Yeah,
guy you can
like a
slot him in.
LeBron, yeah, LeBron and Carmelo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's only RJ is like what 6'7".
Yep, 6'7". Yep,
It's funny because Grimes is 6'5". He's only 2 inches, but there is a body
yep,
type difference, I suppose, there as well that allows him to do a little bit more. But there's no question they should be playing all these different things and really experimenting more because again, what do they have to lose? If you go from 6th to 7th, big deal, right? And who knows? Maybe you get to 5th, and I don't. They're not going to be knocking on 4th seed or anything like that. So in my mind, they are what they are, and this is a chance to really see maybe there is a place to play over their heads. Unlocking some stuff that's maybe unconventional. I don't think we get there with the present coaching staff. I don't think unconventional is really what they would like to do.
yeah.
But you never know. Maybe they'll be willing to do more on the lineup side if they're not going to do it on the X's and O's.
Yeah, I think with Randle being a better passer this year, and like I said, Grimes coming into the starting unit, he's an extremely unselfish player. The offense has looked really good at times. Like we said, they're one of four teams in top 10 offense and defense. McBride and Grimes have been a breath of fresh air, coach. But yeah, I agree with you. With the current coaching staff, we haven't seen a lot of wrinkles, change. We're making the best of what we have. I think there's just been a lot of stop starts, just the 38 games we've seen. There's been players injured. Grimes and McBride only just really came in to the rotation heavily in the last 20 games. So I think the Knicks will finish the season better than what they've started.
Okay. I mean, listen, that's not a hot take at all.
Mm.
They're 20-18 now. Could they finish, 4, 5, 6 games over 500? Yeah, like that's definitely in
Yep.
the cards as
Yeah.
well. There's just some ifs. Again, is Randle going to continue to shoot as well as he has, or is there going to be some regression to what we'd seen before?
Yep.
And let me ask you this. In the past, Randle's been sort of a dark cloud, right? He's been kind of a downer as a teammate.
Mm.
I have sense that I've watched a few of the games recently, just kind of look for that. It's harder on the TV. Have you felt like there's been a little bit of weight lifted on that end where he seems a little bit more of a shinier
Yeah,
teammate?
definitely, definitely, yep. And exactly, you may not have seen just yesterday, he was serenaded by the Garden crowd, chanting MVP,
Oh,
stringing together. We'll talk about our All-Star selections in a second, but he's definitely winning back a lot of some of the fans that were frustrated with Randle last year
yeah.
and his teammate. And he actually credited Jalen Brunson, coach. He said he's one of the best teammates he's ever had.
Oh, without question. And one of the videos I did on Brunson when he went to the Knicks was showing that, it wasn't just Luka on the Mavericks. Brunson was setting Luka up a lot, and it was actually
Mm.
he was the guy in the offense as much as Luka was. So that was always, that they were. I mean, listen, there's some silver linings to what happens, what doesn't happen in the offseason. And listen, Donovan Mitchell is just fantastic right now in Cleveland, and I'm in the middle of doing a 71-point breakdown for him. But again, I think that this worked out well for the Knicks. I still don't know how that would have worked anyway, because now Brunson would have been less effective with the ball less in his hands because of Donovan Mitchell. So I do feel like that this is really the best version of Brunson you're going to get because Donovan didn't go to Knicks.
Agree, 100%. And the Knicks' defensive identity, that's helped them, pull off this win streak, coach. But yeah, I agree with you. You got to extend the rotation to 10 men. That's a key for the Knicks coming through. And the young players coming up with Brunson and Randle, leading, having borderline all-star years. Before we just touch on that, what's your philosophy with the fouling? We saw again. It just seems like the NBA has been hot with the purposely missed free throw, and also fouling. Do you foul up three?
So I did a video on this last year, I believe it was, where it's a no-brainer. You're especially if you're going up against a team out of a timeout that's designed to get you to screw up your defense. Just put them on the line and eliminate the possibility of shooting a three to tie the game. And the response also was like nobody's ever won a game by making the first one, missing the second, getting the rebound, somehow getting it out beyond the 3-point line, and somehow getting it off, and then somehow making it for the like that's never happened. Now we saw Luka do it. That almost like confirms why you should continue to do it because it's the first. You'll see that once every 5 years where the ball goes right to the thing. Now here's the question: maybe our guys sort of practicing this more, and like suddenly the caroms are a little bit more under control than they used to be, and that's an interesting. I'd have to kind of change my tune if that really is the case, and you'd start to see it. Now, that said, the case of Luka, the ball went through 3 different other opponents' hands, got to him right where he had to be, and in the air, shooting it as he's catching it in all one motion, and it goes in from 8 feet. That was a ridiculous shot. Now, let's talk about Donovan Mitchell. He violates the free throw lane, and they don't call it. And so if you want to look at that as an example of making the first, missing the second one, and tying the game up, you can't use that one because the reason why you can't go in the lane early is because of that. And when you do, you get the advantage of getting the ball quickly because there's only 3 defenders in the lane in the NBA. So, a lot of these Cavs fans, I forgot that, Cavs fans, how salty they can be on Twitter. And they're just dismissing everything, but it's like, come on. They want to say, well, Vucevic had his left foot in the lane, right before it left his hand. That happened every single play.
As a Knicks fan, if I had $1 for every gripe I had with the refs this year, there's been a lot of trivial stuff, that can be missed, and there needs to be more. The only way you can correct it is more reviews.
Yeah, but no one wants to do that, and I wouldn't want that. That said, as a 3-man crew, knowing that they're going to miss the free throw on purpose, the only game in town for at least 2 of them needs to be the shooter not going in early. And one guy was doing the clock and the slot, and he wasn't looking. The trail should have been right in front of him and didn't see it. So that's a problem because that affects the outcome of the game. The Bulls win the game. They should win. They should have won the game. Should have been wave it off, get the ball. Bulls out of bounds, and then they had to foul because they were up by 2 at that point.
With the Knicks one though,
calls and a lot of strange things. Even though they've now tried to push the traveling calls more, and that's been better. Like they've been forcing the players to adjust, but they're missing other things.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, with the Knicks one, like you said, it was just a fluky play. It came off Christian Wood, Randle, then McBride and Grimes fumbled it, fell to Luka, but if Thibs put in Jericho Sims, all these rebounders, that's a folly from the coach,
Yeah. Wait. Well, there was a good point about that. because, for instance, if you put another really big guy on the box office shooter, that position,
Yeah,
you might want a guy who's a little bit quicker, who can move a little bit and get over there, because the bigger
true.
guy might be able to get there. So I thought about that. And I think I even said in the video, I might have said he should have put Jericho
Yeah,
Sims in there. So because they don't have that guy, they don't have. Well, Robinson was already in at that point, right?
yeah,
They needed
yeah.
another.
Robinson and Randle were on the line. Yep.
Yeah, and I think Randall's got a huge wingspan, right?
He does, yeah. The issue is it bounced towards Randle and Christian Wood. Randle does have short arms, so Christian Wood's arms got to it first, which then
Yeah,
ricocheted. Yeah,
they needed another guy like a oh gosh, who's the guy on the Raptors? Yeah, who's the Boucher? They need like a Boucher kind of guy. Doesn't have to be big, but just long and a little bit quick. That's the kind of guy. I don't think they really have that. If I'm thinking right now about their whole lineup or about their roster, but again, fluky. Yeah. It's so the thing about Mitchell was interesting was that the theory is that he missed it to the right because he knew that the second the defender was on the left side of the lane. That's like, if they're getting into that kind of stuff and sort of plotting that out, yes, then we're gonna have to really think about whether or not you want to foul, because again, you're getting scientific now in that thing, and it's also weird because I guess this situation does come up, it does come up often, but to have it this many times, I might have to do a video on this and discuss this,
yeah,
because we've had 3 now major ones, 2 of which. Two of which worked, and then you saw the Mavericks and the Spurs. Did you see that one?
yeah. I saw that one. Yep.
There was a time where you were going to lose it because, correct me if I'm wrong. I know my mind is mush these days. The free throw shooter gets the rebound and they foul him, right? And he gets 2
Yeah,
free throws to win the game, and he missed
yeah,
both, right?
yeah. They fouled him. Yeah, but bailed him out. But like what I was going to say, coach, is you're going to see this happen more because what happens with NBA players, they practice. Some players are better at certain things, and they're going to master a craft of intentionally missing. Like Spider and Luca's ones were insane. It was right off the front of the rim, straight back into their hands like a boomerang.
Right. And by the way, when you shoot those, there's no chance of you violating the free throw line because you shoot it hard and quick. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because I watched to make sure that Luca didn't go over early. But again, and is that the way? Do you want to maybe hit the backboard a little bit so it hits off the side of the rim and bounces farther back? You know what I mean? It's tough to hit the front of the rim and expect it to come back like that because it could go in different directions. But if you carom it, maybe that's better too. So you're right. There's probably, I guess, worth thinking about, a situation where you might have one a season or maybe twice a season where you have to actually deal with it.
yeah, no, exactly right. Yeah, it's just fascinating. I look forward to more content and videos. Yeah, make sure you subscribe to B-Ball Breakdown's channel and the Twitter link and the YouTube channel in the description. Hit that like button. Enjoying this conversation with Coach Nick, talking a lot about the NBA, Knicks, and right now we want to talk a little bit about the All-Star situation, Coach.
Yeah.
I'll give you my starters at the moment, which I've got in the East. I've got Spider Mitchell, Jalen Brunson as my starting backcourt, with Tatum, Joel Embiid, and Giannis. And I've got Julius Randle voted in as well off the bench.
So you want to have both those guys on the All-Star team, both Knicks.
Yeah. See, I did look at the starters, and I just think it's either Spider, Trae Young, Spider, and Brunson. And I obviously there's a bit of bias. You can hate me for that, but I just think Brunson's been very deserving. We're above 500. We're in 6. Tie for 6.
Are you sure if you take your hat off, do you not reveal yourself as Wally Szczerbiak?
Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah.
Yeah, because Halliburton deserves it, but I think you're right. I think Mitchell certainly deserves it. And Brunson probably does too. So the question then is like this Randle. You know what? It's not it's impossible. And I think this is gonna get harder and harder. Not only for the All-Star picks, but I think the MVP is going to be impossible too. You're going to end up having, and I've been saying this for years. You're going to 5 or 6 legit players who all should be MVP and are going to get robbed if they don't win it, even though the other one who does win it deserves it completely. And I think you're going to have the same problem here in the All-Star game. And, I suspect, I wonder if eventually they're going to make them a little bit bigger, the teams or something like that, to accommodate.
Yeah, or maybe a more defined system, same as the MVP. It's very subjective, coach. Like, what do you feel? What do you really categorize as an MVP?
Yes. Well, I got into huge hot water from the Bucks fans because I talk about Giannis never really being in the situation, although it's a little bit, he has been a little bit more recently, but not during the MVP year. He wouldn't really be the guy where they'd hand the ball to him at the last possession and say, go win us the game. That would be Middleton would have the ball in his hands and he would screen and he would do something, right? But he wasn't like that MVP guy. So I always, and by the way, Shaq had the same criticism for me because it was like, how I know he's the most dominant player in the league, but he never ever had a last second play call for him because they'd foul him and he missed the free throws. So that's always been troubling to me, only in the sense that, again, if you're going to be the MVP of the league, you got to be MVP of your team, and the MVP of your team is the guy who you give the ball to and say, win us this damn game. So that was anyway, but that's an interesting thing when you're talking about guys like Giannis and NBA. So yes, I like that team. I know we're forgetting. So I guess Trae Young could be one of the guys, and he's again deserving of as many accolades as he can get.
I hear your Halliburton thing as well, definitely, because
Brown.
Indiana they're ahead of the Knicks technically as well.
Exactly, and then, but is that a criteria? Is your team's record supposed to be factored into like in the MVP? They do that sometimes, right? But not always. I don't know if you can ever an organized criteria that will like you can put in, a computer spits it out for you, but I don't know. This has been tough. You asked me to kind of like get this prepared. I was going to try and look at this, and I was like, I don't know. These are the lists because I'll leave somebody out. Like I'm going to go through. This is great. I want these 4 guys, and then you're like, well, we didn't list Luka. And I'm like, oh yeah, damn. So, it's
that's
like,
the good thing. That's why it's your all-star team. It's what you think as a hoops fan, or what you like to see in a player. I think Brunson and Randle are equal deserving. I couldn't really pick one over the other. I just couldn't pick Randle over Tatum, Embiid, and Giannis for a starting look.
Right. I agree. I mean, and by the way, that's the other thing is it won't even be about starting. I think it'll be about making the team. If you made the all-star team, that's that's the gold standard at this point going forward, because again, the starters it's political, it's ridiculous, and there's too many guys that deserve it. What's your West pick then? Who are your West 5?
So West was so much easier, but even EJ and I went back and forth backstage because I had to leave out Devin Booker from, again, like you said, you have to leave someone out. And I've went with Luka and of course Steph. The year Steph Curry's had, I know he's injured, but I had to put in Steph. Steph's an all-star starter for me, and Luka. And I went with LeBron, Jokic, and Zion at the front court.
But then you're leaving out like Ja Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, I had to leave out Ja and SGA. But you can't go wrong with Luka and Steph. No disrespect to them.
Yeah, because I would say Anthony Davis doesn't get a chance because he's been hurt too. But I bet you it's played the same amount of games as Anthony Davis, right? Let's check that out. AD's played 25 games. Steph's played 26. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost like maybe those 2 guys would be like, hey, I get it. I missed 20% of the game, so someone else can just take my spot. Like maybe they would do that. I don't know. And that's when you get SGA or you get Ja Morant in there or something.
Would Kyrie get any votes from you?
Yeah, wow. I mean, his numbers are really good.
He's missed a lot of time, but do you select on right now because he's hot?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there have been plenty of players who have gotten hot, in the January area, and then ride that to an All-Star. Although I guess but Kyrie, I mean, look at his numbers. I just called him up real quick. He's played 27 games, so he's played more than Steph. He's played more than AD.
Okay. Wow.
He's from the field over. He's almost, he's going to do, he's close to a 50, 40, 90 on 26 points a game. And the Nets are playing terrific, right? Like, and then by the way, for how well he's shooting, KD is doing a whole other level better than that. And so they're going to be very, very tough. And then, Simmons is putting together, figuring some things out. So I like that team. They're another team that's missing, probably what the Knicks are missing, some sort of a wing defender, long kind of guy. I think everyone would use that or need that.
Just your personal preference. Who would you pick over Sabonis and Randle?
Oh my goodness. Well, gosh, I got to see the list. So let's see. Because Sabonis again, it's Sabonis or Randle, it's either or, right? Well, you have Randle coming up.
Sabonis is in the West, but I'm just saying as a player, who would you prefer?
Well, I mean, either way, Sabonis should be on the team. He's an all-star, right? I mean, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
He's on the team. I think he's made it no problem.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, he, and it's funny because he is kind of limited in his game, but it's what he does well. He does so well. He doesn't have to do anything else, right? In that way, as lefties are allowed to do in a weird way. But I'd be shocked if he doesn't make it anyway. He will be, an all-star, on the bench guy. Randle is better and always kills Sabonis. Is that right?
Head to head, Randle always does play well. Yeah, very well against Sabonis. I think obviously he's more of a physical player. I think he's more physical than Sabonis. Sabonis thrives with his physicality as well, but I think Randle usually gets the better of that matchup.
All right, I'm going to check that out. I can in my mind picture Sabonis taking him down low and getting and doing what he wants down there. But there's a whole other side of the court too on that. And by the way, even it's amazing what LeBron is doing and Jokic. It's again, and you're talking about a guy like Jokic, you're talking about a guy like Luka, and you're talking about Embiid and Giannis. It's like, these guys they do so much. It's impossible to choose when you're talking for an MVP. And you're lucky that they're kind of balanced conference-wise now, so at least they can find enough all-star starters spots for those guys. But that's rough.
You mentioned LeBron's numbers. And we talked about it earlier in the show. Can you really play defense much anymore? Like what constitutes as solid defense? Just staying in front of your man, making it difficult for him to hit the shot. The Knicks have had a lot of ticky-tack calls, and on the other side, you can be very physical with Randle, and he doesn't get as many calls.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, listen, LeBron fans will argue that he doesn't get calls either. The thing about LeBron, though, especially with AD out, is that they're not really playing winning basketball offensively, and not that they would win all the games, but there's something called winning basketball, right? Where there's some player movement and the ball moves. There's an energy there. And he kind of sapping the energy out of the team, unfortunately. And I probably feel like he thinks he has to do that. And it's too bad because I feel like he's got other pros on his team that could benefit from less of the heliocentric offense that he wants to run. It's what he's done his whole career. It certainly makes his stats look great. And who knows? Maybe they wouldn't win any more games than they already are now, which is not a lot. But it certainly is. It's a little bit frustrating to watch the Lakers now when they do that, and LeBron does that, and there should be some more freedom of movement for the players to get some more stuff, and so as a result, that kind of makes me, of course LeBron's going to start at the All-Star game, but he might be one of those guys who I'm like, well, there's other guys who might be as deserving or more.
Yeah, definitely. It's that pick that's predetermined, and it's great to hear your thoughts that fouling up three for anyone who's just joining in. Fouling up three is something that I'm glad you said because that's, I think, what the Knicks did, and any team that did it correctly, it's a good idea because this day and age, you got players that can hit that three ball, and you don't exactly want to get in their airspace either. So you can't really contest a proper buzzer beater shot properly.
Yeah, and they did it perfectly. They got him in the backcourt before he got close to shooting a three because that happened to me once when I was coaching. A freshman or sophomore high school team in the summer, and we tried to take the foul, and maybe even the player suggested it. Because remember, the idea of the 3-point shot and fouling and this stuff, the three came in, when I was in high school. So that whole concept really wasn't prevalent into the 90s and late 90s. We tried doing it, and of course, they foul him while he's shaking the three, and he makes it,
Yeah.
and then hits the free throw, and we lose the game. That'll make a young coach not want to take a foul anymore after that. But as long as you have the right rules and understand how to do it, yes, that should be the thing you should do. Trust me, it'll in the long run you'll be better off.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something the Knicks really hadn't found themselves in that situation. That's something that's new that Tom Thibodeau has brought in, just so you know. The Knicks, in years of following this team, they've never done that, foul up three. So that's been a change.
Thibs didn't do it either. There's a certain era, and Thibs is a little bit older than me, and anybody who's my age or older, because of that, it wasn't rooted in any kind of fundamental coaching stuff for so long up until the late 90s, early 2000s, that I think a lot of guys don't want to do it. Popovich is notorious. He won't foul up by three, and he's gotten over and over again on that one. It drives me nuts. Primarily because I'm sure he just kind of is stuck to this notion of like it wasn't the thing, and then I don't want to do. I'm gonna defend. We're gonna really. We don't deserve to win if we can't stop anybody. But I gotta tell you, the law of averages, like, just eliminate the possibility. Just to put them on the line, and then just pray that you get that rebound.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to hear your thoughts here with Quickly. That's sort of very new, where Quickly's playing alongside Brunson. The talk about his contract coming up, coach. The Knicks have his restricted rights, obviously, but his extension eligible. There was some noise that teams are calling the Knicks for Emmanuel Quickly. So, what would you do? Do you think he's an absolute keeper for the New York Knicks? And restricted free agency favors the team that has his rights. So I don't think the Knicks should worry.
Right. Well, I mean, it depends on who they can get from what kind of value he has. But if they could shore up some things, I would trade him. You know what I mean? Get some value for him back if they could get what do they need, right? Like they would probably need a better version of the Cam Reddish player, right?
Yeah, a 6'8" and above wing.
Yeah, some sort of three. By the way, which is what every team wants. So it's like nobody wants to trade away that. So it's probably moot. Like they're not going to get that. But if a good deal came up where they could shore up something like that, I wouldn't say he's untouchable without question. You can definitely trade him.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, with Brunson here. That's the main topic. Can Quickly find himself in a starting role with RJ and Grimes here. But for me, I would still keep Quick off the bench. I think he's still very important. A guy like Dyson Daniels, right? Tari Eason, that kind of defensive archetype, right?
Love it. Yeah, Dyson Daniels has been a revelation to me. I was unaware of him until this year, and every time I've seen him play, I've loved what I've seen from him. So that's great. And by the way, Grimes has that kind of. He is that kind of guy, right? Although Daniels is 6'8" or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think Daniels is 6'7", 6'8", Grimes 6'5".
Daniels is an Aussie, right?
Yeah,
is he,
he is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
From the same state as me.
Oh yeah. Well, have we talked about this before about how a lot of the Australians can't shoot threes?
We've talked about it a little bit, but I think a lot of people seem to mention is a lot of these Aussie guards come in with passing skills.
Yeah.
Josh Giddey, and then there's another one where I'm going to talk about in draft content, Taron Armstrong, who's at Cal Baptist right now. He's borderline a better passer than Josh Giddey is as well in his many years coming out.
Because I have a friend who's a coach in Australia who tells me how they teach shooting at sort of a base level, and it's archaic and old school in a way that it's not surprising to see all these guys coming in the league and really struggling to shoot. And I mean, it's not a secret. It's they still teach guys to be square to the basket, and they teach them not to dip the ball on the catch. And those are the two things you have to do to be a good shooter, basically. And so, the 10 toes to the rim thing is really like, 80s mentality. And if Andrew Gaze, who I remember because he's a little older than me, I think he's in charge of a lot of the Australian basketball national stuff. Like he was probably taught that, even though he turned his feet and he may not even realize that he does. And when you have guys who are square, you can't get your elbow under the ball. It's harder, and you'll see that's why you get these funky forms like Ingles and Dellavedova. And both of those guys have been able to kind of get the ball to go in. Not necessarily that consistently. Ingles a little bit more, but man, it's ugly. But for the most part, you keep getting Giddy, and you get Simmons, and you get
Josh Green.
Yeah, although Josh Green he's been better this year, right? I mean, granted, he literally. I think they've adjusted a little bit, but they were giving him 15 feet. So that's tough to really know if he's shooting better, because literally he's shooting like, by himself in a gym. But there's a reason why they're doing that, and that's the problem here is they need to revamp the way they're teaching shooting down under.
Obviously, we didn't mention Paddy Mills, the best probably Australian shooter in terms of form.
Now
but he grew up at the Institute here, which is the same where Joe Ingles went to Europe early to learn.
That Paddy Mills did not go through the normal system, because he was like an Aborigine and he grew up playing somewhere else. Is that?
I think he did, but he went to the US earlier. He went to St. Mary's, I think. Yeah, he played at St. Mary's, where Dellavedova did. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was St. Mary's that he probably already had that stroke.
Yeah.
I'm gonna track down Paddy Mills. Maybe when they come to LA, I'm gonna find out. Gonna pull him aside and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because or the other guy who plays in the Australian League now. What's the guy who just Goulding?
Goulding, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris
so
Goulding, yeah.
There are guys who can shoot the crap out of the ball in Australia, but some of the guys who are coming to NBA, like I get concerned because there's some basic stuff that they could improve on right away that would make them better.
Speaking of great shooters, Dirk Nowitzki is down under, and I'm going to be meeting him next week. I'm curious to know if you've met Dirk or had a conversation with him.
I have not met Dirk. I would love to, because speaking of his form, he is a real throwback to a high release over the head with a hitch, and he figured it out, was able to get it to go in a whole lot. No one would model that, to shoot that way anymore. But certainly there are some things we could glean from that as we want to study it. I'm sure he'd be very happy to talk to you about all that stuff. He sounds like just a truly amazing guy who's very open and willing to talk to anybody.
He is, yeah. He's running some camps, and he's having a sit down night talking about his life and his journey to success. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Obviously known as one of the greatest international players ever, and I was rooting for Dirk in 2012 against the Heatles more than I've rooted against any other non-Knick player. I just wanted him to get his ring.
Oh yeah, I had just started B-Ball Breakdown around that time, and so I'll remember that very vividly. Going through those games and trying to edit. Don't watch those videos because they're terrible, but they're up somewhere. But I'll never forget that too. There was something exciting about the underdog that everybody, I'm sure, can gravitate towards, and it was fun to watch them do that.
Yeah, and obviously the Knicks are trending towards play-in, playoffs. Well, so what do you feel like are the keys for the Knicks just for the rest of this season? And if they were to be in the playoffs again, based on what you saw in the Atlanta series, what could be different with Brunson on this team and now Quentin Grimes?
I mean, I think it's that leadership that he brings in the organization to the offense. It's huge. So you won't see a lot of the ISOs and the long twos the really bad Randle shots that we had seen for several playoffs. And that'll be big. Like, when you have a guy like him who, can sense the moment and knows what the right decision needs to be from a team perspective, that's huge. It's like, in the NCAA tournament, a lot of times these young teams that have all this talent, all these NBA guys are going to NBA, they get beat because they had two senior guards on the other team, right? And they have and the other guys are okay. It goes a long way, even in the NBA. When you have a senior guard like Brunson, who is just under control and knows how to run an offense like that, that'll keep them in games. It'll limit their mistakes like that, and then that's the biggest key. Now, again, what I'm seeing offensively is not as structured as you normally think for Thibs teams, which is a little bit concerning, because sometimes the players could take advantage of that in the playoff situation, and all of a sudden the game gets loose and they're not getting the kind of shots they need on the road, and when they're down by 8 in the third quarter. So we'll have to see how that adjusts. Or does Thibs slowly take a little bit more control of the offense going forward, calling a few more sets, whittling away at the sculpture that gets more, recognizable as they get to the end of the season. I do feel like he tends to spend more time on defense than offense, and so as a result, sometimes the offense does suffer for that. And if you want to get to the second round of the playoffs, you got to have a really, really good offense.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, great analogy because teams scheme against you, 7-game series. I think the Knicks first got to figure out zone coverage, coach, because that's been their undoing. When teams switch it up and they throw zone, our offense can go stale. And we might be seeing more of Emmanuel quickly get more minutes, to bust that zone with Grimes.
Well, by the way, the zone, I mean, there's very specific ways to attack. I need to do a video on this as well, because, you can basically play a zone like a man and you can treat it like a man. But a lot of times if you don't have if you haven't been drilled on that and really understand that, then you get stagnant real quick and you don't know how to, like, they're in front of me, I can't drive because they're all in the zone. It turns out, no, you can set a ball screen, force guys to, rotate over, kick. Now you're getting the same kind of things in a man-to-man, but there's lanes you want to attack specifically. There are areas you want to ball screen in, and so it's not hard. And I'm sure Thibs studies the game better than most. He should be able to see that and give them 3 or 4 good quick hitters. They'll get them going into it. And then once they get the defense scrambling, they should be able to handle that. It's not surprising that, a team throws a zone, catches them off guard, lose a game for that. It would be more surprising if they do it more often and the teams start to do it more and they're not adjusting. That would be a real problem and a big red flag.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that'd be something they could adjust to more if they were seeing it more as well. Obviously, a key to the Knicks' success is pace too, coach. They've been playing faster on offense, getting skip passes. I know you're big on skip passes. What do you just sort of tell the audience a little bit about your theory?
Okay. Yeah, I've been trying to get like Second Spectrum to give me some data about skip passing if they can actually quantify that, because the best teams at every level of basketball are the ones who skip the ball more than the other. And that's key because defenses will load up on the strong side, and now it gets much harder to penetrate. And when you skip the ball on a good pass, all of a sudden the defense is completely scrambling, and now you get a lot more openings. So it's not hard. You got to just sort of train it and get people to be thinking about it. And that's where you get a lot of those attack on the catch into the middle, and then you skip to the other side, and now you got a catch and shoot for a 3, or another breakdown and then another skip. The Celtics were doing that terrifically the second half of last season. They got them all the way to the finals doing that. And interestingly enough, they're not doing as much this year from what I've seen, and they haven't missed a beat. So sometimes it doesn't always completely mean that, yes, you must throw skip passes, but that your offense is functioning optimally when you're getting a lot of those skip passes, and you should be getting open shots from that. So that's sort of the mindset you want to have. And by the way, that zone is another great example where you'd want to find as many skips as you can.
Yeah, great points. I agree. Yeah, you can't rely on the guard to always run the ball up because there's full court press. There's a lot of guys in the league picking up guards. Now beyond half court. I've noticed, slowing people down.
Yeah, I guess so. Wait, there's nothing wrong with that, and we should see a lot more of that. A passive zone, like a 2-2-1 back into man, that makes them take 7 seconds off the clock before they get past half court. The fact that teams don't do that every possession is mind-boggling to me. Or they should do it 15 times a game. It would really make half court possession a lot harder because they don't have time. And anytime you see a team roll the ball up and the defense lets them roll it up, I want to throw my phone out the window, because you can't allow that to happen and let them get all those extra seconds they can do in the half court. And funnily enough, I saw that happen recently where the team was winning in the last minute, and you think they want the clock to run, but they rolled it up. And I was like, this is crazy. But then I thought about it. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What doesn't run? By doing that, they actually allow them to hold the ball even longer, right? Because the game clock was running, but the shot clock wasn't running. So that they actually were able to take more time off the clock by running it down because they were winning that way, which seemed weird to me. But you know what I mean? So that sounds right. Now I'm losing my train of thought how that worked. But anyway, the point being is the other team let him do it. They let him roll the ball up, and that's just a huge sake. So anyway,
Yeah, I saw
point being,
that video.
what's that?
Yeah, I saw that video you put up about how a team was just allowed to milk the clock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's funny.
unbelievable.
And then again, you hope that that happens, okay, once, and then you learn from that, and it doesn't happen again. Kind of like the foul up by 3. I think a Harden team, whenever this was a year or two ago, they got beat on it, and then after that, Harden was taking the foul every time they were up 3, and they were doing it properly, and they were winning those games now. So that's the key. That's
Yeah,
the huge key there.
yeah, and I'll hit you with this last one. Since the Knicks went to that 9-man rotation, Randle leads the NBA in plus minus at 142. Um, so yeah, in that streak, the Knicks have gone 10 and 5.
Yeah, it's weird. So plus 142 in 15 games. Whatever. What does that mean? Plus
Yeah,
minus is a little.
it was a lot of blowouts though.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough when we use plus minus, but there's no question. Yes. So what does that mean? Why is Randall getting unlocked with a shorter rotation? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts why that is?
I just think it's the team success, really. The team success, with that
Yeah,
shortened rotation. Yeah, the Knicks went on that 8-game win streak. We caught a few breaks with undermanned teams. We blew a few teams out. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and maybe the NBA's just been more even over that stretch where no player has really had that much of a plus situation. But before we wrap up, is there anything around the NBA or anything with your platform you would like to talk about?
Okay, well, yeah, well, I'm doing the video on the Mitchell 71 point game, which is interesting, and then that kind of talks about the up foul up by 3. I'm going to do a video very soon on the free throw shooting. Sochan's free throw adjustment he made in Spurs, and then we're going to talk about Ben Simmons. We'll talk about some other really Miles Plumlee, who switched hands last year at the end of last year. So
Wow.
that should be a really good video. I think the tweet that I showed of Sochan shooting one-handed went viral, which indicates to me there's a lot of interest in the free throw shooting stuff. So I'm going to have that. And, the list is long of all sorts of things I got to get to. And then it changes from day to day when, Klay Thompson had 56 points, 56, 54, whatever it was. And by the
Yeah.
way, another wild game when they didn't foul up by 3 when Jordan Poole had the ball dribbling away from the basket and the guy just had to whack him and didn't. And then DiVincenzo gets to hit the 3 to tie and they win in overtime. So
Yeah.
there might be another those kinds of other crazy finishes and stuff like that we're going to probably continue to see more of. The more 3-point shooters you have on the floor, the crazier the games are going to be.
No, I agree. Yeah, we've seen an absolute crazy NBA season, and it's good for us content creators. There's never anything short of a topic, to talk about. All-Star Weekend's about to come up, the trade deadline. You must be a very busy man.
Yeah, I'm busy, and then I don't know. Yeah, I'm busy, but I'm also doing other stuff and distracted and all that stuff. It's a weird season, I'll tell you that. It's hard to get a finger on what's happening and why. But for sure, as we're moving closer to the playoffs, yes, lots of interesting storylines. I'm
Yep.
really looking forward to it. And the Knicks are certainly going to be in that mix. I'll definitely get another video on them too.
Yeah, no, we all look forward to it. It's been a pleasure having you on, and of course, the draft is generational, Coach, with Wembanyama, Scoot, Thompson twins. There's going to be a lot of franchises be sellers, I feel.
Oh yeah, and if you're wondering why Wembanyama shoots one-legged threes, this is the culmination of my work over the last several years of proselytizing about the value of shooting one-legged threes. This guy's been doing it probably more than anybody now. I'm going to find out exactly who's training him and why and how he's picking it up, but no one's been talking about it like I have in the last several years, and so
Wow.
it's gratifying to see that this is now it will become
Yeah.
a viable show. And as soon as Wembanyama gets into the league and he does a few of those, I'm sure even more people will. We Luka just did one. We're seeing him more and more now, and people thought I was insane and were screaming at me to the rafters. But it turns out, I think I'm gonna be right on this one.
Well, I'm about to meet Dirk next week, the king of the one-legged step back three, and just had a statue unveiled with that move.
Yeah, well, it wasn't for 3, right? He was doing it from the
Oh
kind of
yeah,
the post,
true. Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
But definitely you should ask him about it, because I'm sure he would say, yeah, I worked on it, whatever. But if you're going downhill on a pick and roll and the guy's dropping, just go off 1 foot and let it makes it effortless. I mean, as an old guy now shooting, I can barely get the ball at the rim, but when I shoot those one-legged threes, as a runner, it's effortless and I have no problem keeping it straight. So everybody out there watching, go out there on the court and try it, and I guarantee you're going to like it.
Yeah. I've seen the footage of Wembanyama, and he gets a lot of fouls because he sticks the other leg out as well,
Yeah.
and it's tough to close out on a guy.
Yeah. And so then it changes the definition of airspace or landing space, because I'm allowed my space. I'm allowed to land, and if I am doing a runner, then where I'm supposed to be able to land is in front of where I took off, and now the defense has to figure that out. It's another reason to shoot them. So a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of good stuff that we talked about tonight. I appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen. Coach Nick, BBallbreakdown. Like, subscribe to the channel. Amazing content dropping all season long as well. Like and subscribe the video tonight. And Coach, we'll talk soon.
You got it. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Appreciate everyone. Like, subscribe. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.